Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast from Backlot Banter where we view and review every single Palme d'Or winner in random order. Oh boy, I love that it is random. That means we get a great, big, wide range of films all across history. Today, we've got a very special movie because for the first time on Quest, we're not actually talking about cinema. We have an animated film. I had to do it.
Carrying over a joke from last week.
Strong joke that everyone loves.
Everyone loves that joke. No, we're just reviewing an animated film.
An animated film.
That's all Timo means with that joke. It is a joke, by the way.
It's a joke. It's a joke. The film Dumbo, 1941, Walt Disney, RKO. A film that was like a movie that maybe many of us saw when we were children, except for me.
RKO still
I didn't see it.
Still distributes Disney's movies currently, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah,
That sounds right. I mean, we'll talk about our history with this film when we get past the housekeeping. Isn't that right, Timo?
Yes, because I got to remind you about what we
Get out
talked
of the
about
room.
last time.
Get
We
out of
are
the vacuum.
doing a little sweeping. We had a film, Rome Open City, to highlight Tucker's trip overseas. We gave it a score of 8.2, which means it ended up on spot number 6 on the list. Pretty far up there. So we shall see how Dumbo compares to that Italian neo-realist classic. But, well, we've got a neo-animated whatever. Abram, do you have
early animated film?
Just an early animated movie. Abram,
Yeah.
featured comment, because I'm chomping at the bit here to talk about a circus movie.
I do have a featured comment. This is a comment that we got 9 months ago on the old channel. This is from Screen Time with Steel 6811, who commented on our review of Oliver. They say the following: "Yeah, seriously, you guys have no idea what you're talking about." Now the next part's in all caps, so I'm gonna do it justice. Hold on, let me stand up. I'm gonna go to the other side of the room for a moment.
Okay,
Here, hold
don't
on,
go
folks,
too
hold
far
on.
away. Don't go too far away.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'll check your
Okay.
levels here.
Yeah, okay, all right. Steele continues by saying, "Oliver is the greatest British musical of all time."
Oh wow. Okay.
Honestly, he could have been closer.
He could have been closer. You were too far away, Abram. Too far
Yeah,
away.
he was not too far.
I was a little afraid because Steele used 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
4,
wow, look at
5
that.
A's and 7 L's.
I think you need to
do
hit it
all.
more with the. Hang on, I'll do mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Okay,
here we go.
you go ahead.
All right, this is the
Yeah.
latter part of the
Try-
comment.
This is
try
a
again.
Dumbo episode.
Try again.
Get your sensitive ass back
is
to
the
class.
greatest British musical of all time.
There we go.
Very well
And
done.
Timo, boost that in post.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Uh,
after that bit,
yeah, great comment.
Thank you, Steele.
Yes.
If that's the greatest British musical of all time, I tremble to know what the worst
just
is.
don't see any of the other ones.
We have seen plenty of other ones, actually. A
Yeah,
lot
we
of
have
those
too.
babies won
Yeah.
Best Picture.
Well, this film won the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival. Tanner, would you do us the honor of recapping the plot of Dumbo in case
Dumbo?
you didn't
Boy,
remember what it is?
I guess I can try. All right. So in the film Dumbo, we open on, how babies are made and how babies are, or I guess delivered more accurately, that we all know. Which
Biblically
is
accurate baby production.
That's right. Storks are dropping baby animals from the sky, delivering them to the circus animals.
And let me tell you, these animals have been getting it on.
Lots of
I was
babies.
shocked by how many babies were being dropped in the exact same place. I'm like, did they plan this? That's crazy.
They must have.
I don't know.
This could have been
A lot of parents do.
Yeah, that's true. That place being Florida, inexplicably, I guess.
Florida.
That canonically takes place in Florida. One such baby that is delivered to a elephant named Mrs. Jumbo. Her sweet baby Jumbo Jr., or as he is quickly named by the other elephants, Dumbo, because of his extremely large ears.
Yes.
Now Dumbo is made, is sort of incorporated into the circus after meeting a mouse, Timothy Q. Mouse, who inspires him to be. You have to be a star,
He stands for
Dumbo.
Quizas
Quizat.
That's right, Timothy Kwisatz Haderach Mouse.
That's for the cue.
Yeah,
Chalamet.
Chalamet.
Wait, and he's a mouse? Just Muad'Dib?
Oh my
God.
God.
Timothy?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
We're connecting all sorts of dots here. Anyway, Dumbo joins the circus, and then he gets kicked out of the circus, or he gets bullied, or leaves the circus because he gets drunk one time.
His mom, Mrs. Jumbo,
Yeah.
gets mad that her son is being harassed by a bunch of circus boys. So she freaks out.
Yeah.
She gets thrown into solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Mr. Mouse comes along to help Dumbo get out of the exploitation under the hands of the clowns.
Yeah.
They get drunk, they meet the crows, Dumbo starts flying, the movie ends.
That's right.
There we
Dumbo
go.
flies in, saves the day, saves the circus.
Inexplicably, they have like a DMT acid trip while drinking champagne. I guess maybe that's just what happens when champagne enters the body of mice and or elephants.
Yeah, the infamous pink elephants on parade scene that we'll get to. I also think it's very funny that we've easily spent the most amount of time in a Quest episode recapping the plot of Dumbo.
As you can maybe guess, we are not going to be super serious about this one. Where do we want to start with this film? Who wants to give out some initial thoughts, or maybe hazard a guess as to why this movie won the Palme d'Or?
Well, there's an answer.
Yeah, there is an answer, because this was the first and only year that they divided the Palme d'Or, or the Grand Prix, as it was called at the time. It wasn't technically called the Palme d'Or yet. Up into different categories. We've discussed a couple films that have won these categories already. This film, Dumbo, won the Best Animated Film aspect of the Grand Prix. I'll get the other specific names of those here.
The film is from 1941, but it won at the 1947 festival.
As I said at the end of last episode, Europe a little busy in 1941, so couldn't get the theatrical distribution of Dumbo that America got in 1941. Did get it in 1947, thus it was eligible, thus it won Best Animated Film that year.
It's interesting though that obviously we are really only familiar most personally with the modern Cannes Film Festival history, where films don't show up late. Obviously, this was in a specific scenario, but movies basically only premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. They don't show up later and then win things. And so this is obviously just something that's changed over the years. Maybe this is something that was only specifically different for that year. They're like, okay, well, this is the first year people are seeing these movies in France, so we're making a special exception. But I do think that it's interesting that we're getting a chance to review an animated film for the first time with the four of us. I actually don't think the four of us have ever reviewed an animated film together. Even all the other reviews that we've done. But it does also point to the very clear live-action bias that awards bodies have, just period, in that the only way that we ever got a chance or may ever get a chance to review an animated film is when there was a category where it was specifically designed for an animated film must win this category.
Yes.
There's no other option.
Yes, so it specifically
and it does
won...
point to the thing that people like Guillermo del Toro have been pushing. Like, people need to treat animation less like a genre usually skewed towards children, but more as ostensibly a different medium of storytelling within the art of filmmaking that is worthy of similar merit, but that is certainly not reflected in the films that win major awards. There's never been, there's only been like, what, 2-3 animated films nominated for Best Picture? Toy Story 3, Beauty and the Beast. I think that might be it.
Because
did Spider-Verse get nominated for Best Picture?
it was not, notably.
No.
We're going to go on some tangents in this episode. The Best Animated Feature category at the Oscars was created the year that Shrek came out, because they were afraid that
2001.
Shrek would also be nominated for Best Picture.
There's no way. There's no way that was going to happen. Are you kidding me?
But it was also like in the works already. Beauty and the Beast was nominated in 1996, the first time that it had ever happened, and so the wheels were in motion to get that category started. But yes,
but it all started
Dumbo,
back here with Dumbo.
That's right. Dumbo
Not exactly,
won
but-
specifically
Gertie the Dinosaur.
Yeah.
the Best Animation Design Grand Prix, along with other films that we've discussed from the 1947 Cannes Film Festival. The Best Musical Comedy category went to Ziegfeld Follies, and Best Psychological and Love Film went to Antoine et Antoinette.
A couple films we've already talked about. And you
I'd sure hate to see the competition for those movies.
I suppose we should finally actually review Dumbo, shouldn't we?
Let's do opening thoughts. Let's not get crazy.
Okay.
We got a format.
Abram, what do you think? Give us your opening midway through thoughts.
I really like Dumbo a lot. I had a great time watching Dumbo. I did not see Dumbo when I was a kid, actually. My mom deemed this one too sad for me to watch when I was a kid.
That's ridiculous.
It's kind of sad in certain ways.
I
I wouldn't say any more sad than
Too much
your
so
run of the
for a
mill.
child?
First time watching Dumbo.
Yeah.
So I think that's important because I don't have any nostalgia for the film. Seeing it for the first time the other day, and I liked it a lot. I mean, I just really love Disney on a whole. So that's there's already an inherent level of enjoyment
To a certain point.
Sure, that I hold for the classic Disney animated films.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my thoughts apply to basically any of the Disney movies I've seen apply to Dumbo, which is I love big, colorful animals going on adventures. And I think that is what Dumbo is. It's only an hour long. I think it's beautifully animated. I absolutely love the pink elephant sequences we talked about. And I generally think that I still have my heart open to whimsy. And I think that there's a lot of whimsy and a lot of really fun, complicated animated sequences in this film. When all the elephants are stacked on top of each other before Dumbo knocks the whole tower over. I mean, that is beautiful, complicated, playful animation. I think it's a very, very, very well done film. I think ultimately the problem with Dumbo, though, for me, is that the movie gets the most interesting in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the film ends before we really get to see where Dumbo and his mouse friend go from there on their big sort of
Hollywood superstardom, apparently.
Yeah, they're superstardom and they're just all the exploits they get on that we see in like a quick sizzle reel. I think are actually in some ways more interesting than the plot events of the film before it. But
this
on the
movie's
whole,
primed for a modern live action remake.
God, yeah, they should do that. Yeah.
on the whole, I really like Dumbo.
Yeah.
Anyone got a filmmaker in mind? Tanner, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, Dumbo's all right, I think, ultimately. I ultimately do somewhat recollect having seen this at my babysitter's house when I was very young, undoubtedly on VHS of some kind. Disney had released this one from the vault at some point, I'm sure. And I don't know, because it's adapted from a children's book also. I had to look that up because I would have assumed that this was an original story, but it is adapted from a kid's book.
Disney didn't really do too many original stories for the first part of their
I was
history.
like trying to
Basically,
figure out,
everything's
is this
based off
the first one they did? Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the story is obviously very simple. The lesson you are meant to learn is very straightforward. There are, the emotional highs and lows that apparently Abram's mom thought were a little too low for a young Abram Buhner. I think it cashes in some emotional moments fairly well. It's cute to see Dumbo and his mom playing around and stuff like that, and so it's sad to see them broken up, but it's very easy emotional cards to play because you're playing to an audience of, 6-year-olds in the 1940s.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that this movie is definitely my favorite circus movie that we've talked about, considering that now we have talked about 2 circus movies. If we're gonna talk about, the rigmarole of the big top, this movie has a wonderful sequence setting it all up, and the vibe of the circus is this very playful and fun atmosphere.
Not the song though, that's playing under that sequence.
No.
I don't know if you guys caught the lyrics under the sequence of putting up the tent, where it's all about basically slave labor and the fact that people putting it up aren't educated and they're breaking their backs and toiling in day in, day out.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
That. It's weird.
Well, the cuteness factor of this film is a big one for me. I mean, we got the train that's named and huffing and puffing, and so that's playing on my heartstrings. And then we've got the marching pink elephants section, which is actually pretty much out of this world. I mean, it's very, very surprising to me that we see this in not only a children's movie, but an older movie. The design language, I think, of the film is just really, really good. And we get some cool classic cartoon Foley examples in this movie to put on my sound nerd hat once in a while. But I think there's a lot to like. I mean,
Doug. Doug
Doug
Soundheiser.
It's a simple story, but it's obviously not intended to be anything more than what it's trying to do. So I think it's a very successful film. Doesn't give us a whole lot to chat about, I believe, but it was an entertaining watch. I enjoyed it. An hour long. I was watching the whole time, and it was cute. So yeah, I give it good marks.
Good marks all around. Okay.
Well, we got Tucker.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot.
There's a fourth one. Excuse me.
Well, you've been butting in so much. You might as well. You've already given your goddamn
Excellent point.
thoughts.
You know what? That's true. And there's no defining it. There's no excuses. I just have been butting in a lot. Yeah, I think it's okay too. I'm my heart is not open to whimsy when it comes to Disney films specifically. I did not grow up on this era of animated movies, the storytelling style of Disney films. There are a very scant few that I watched. Period. I mean, I probably at some point in my life, my physical being has been sat in front of the film Dumbo, but it comes at the point in my life when these
Your,
sort of
your
films were put on
spirit
in the
being was
background.
not there, man.
That's
No,
right.
God. But these sort of films aren't the kind of things that my mind was ever attuned to as a child, and especially as an adult, I have noticed my my tastes in art, and especially in storytelling and film being one of my favorite ways for stories to be told, to skew much more towards the narratively complex and the character-wise complex and enriching. And these sort of films, that's not their intention. It's very much focused on a simple story, very, very simple characters. And Dumbo does a few things that, for me, I think put it on the lower end of the ones that I have revisited in recent times. One film that I do really like from not early Disney, not that early Disney, but Disney period is Pocahontas. I actually really like that movie. But that has a lot more texture to the characters.
Yes.
And one specific thing that I think for me distances me from engaging with Dumbo on an emotional level is that Dumbo is a silent character, and the characters around him that are voiced are relatively one note. I mean, Timmy Mouse is really the only character with any kind of, goal or
Yeah.
agency. And that kind of simplicity of like stripping it back to Dumbo is a great little design. I like his animation, but I don't care about Dumbo. I like the ideas and themes that the films is hinting at in its own simple way, and I think the animation is quality, but I'm a narrative character focused guy, and this film ostensibly offers neither. And I also think that the fact that it's just so short means that any kind of narrative thrust that I think Abram was sort of alluding towards is cut off right as you feel like it's about to get to, oh, there's some interesting stuff here. People reconciling with the fact that someone they treated poorly in the past suddenly has a talent they need to treat. Like, there are these ideas that are like, oh, I can see where oh, 60, ding, 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 65 minutes is up.
Yeah.
Gotta get out of here.
So what's
That's
interesting?
a Disney picture.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is like, I think Tucker, you had mentioned, jokingly that like, oh, someone should make a live action remake of this, and to a certain extent, I think, as someone who abhors and hates the live action Disney remakes, I think there is some kernel of a good idea to remaking these early ones, where the narrative is especially complex. They were more, along the lines of like essentially like a storybook in action for people to go see in theaters. So in terms of like building upon the story, the narrative there, I think there is something to that. I haven't seen 2019's Dumbo, but like there is obviously some merit to like taking that narrative, building it out, allowing for potentially some characters to have some greater and more complex arcs. But for the purposes of this film, like I said it already, it's like a story. It's like a storybook. So there is some, there is some enjoyment to be found in the simplicity to some extent, I think. It is what it is ultimately in my eyes.
I mean, we were also, as we were watching, we were looking up a couple things. Some of the voice talent in this film.
That's right.
Is important voice talent later in Disney's,
of course,
canon. One of the Lady Elephants is the voice of Minnie Mouse.
Yep.
The stork at the beginning of the film is one of the voices of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. Or the original voice of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, and
he's not still around though.
No, he is not still around.
There's a lot to this movie that is, I think, beginning to refine what these Disney animated films would become. Because obviously, so we're looking up, this is what, their third?
Yes. It was
feature?
Snow White, Pinocchio, and then this.
Yeah, and so you start to get those musical numbers in this. The number that is sung while Dumbo, after feeling very melancholy, sees his mother through the cage. It's a nice number. Obviously, it's nowhere near the complexity or the engagement of what you're getting in Jungle Book, or even what you're getting in Fantasia, which I think is their next film.
Oh yeah, sorry. This was number 4.
I see.
Fantasia was also before this.
Well, in that sense, then you can almost see like what was happening in Fantasia beginning to be paired with a more narrative-driven movie, and so I think that if you're interested in sort of where Disney movies go when they reach their apex, a lot of those tropes and ideas you can see being.
Their apex elemental. That's right.
That was Pixar.
That was Pixar.
But they are owned by Disney, and I don't care. So it's
oh yeah.
When they reach their apex with Empire Strikes Back.
That's right. There we go.
Wait, hold on, but that wasn't produced under the.
That's right.
But yeah, that's just my overarching point.
Yeah,
I think there's also an interest for me as someone who just loves Disney, and that very clearly colors my thoughts in the film. Because you guys are totally right. It is quite a simple movie, but I think I can look at it and pull out these ideas and be like, well, it's very interesting going back to these very early Disney films and seeing how they evolved into the ones that I love the most, like Mulan, like Jungle Book, like Pocahontas, and films like that, which come much later.
Films that as the nature of making an animated film has advanced to the point where like you don't have to limit it to an hour, so your animators can actually probably sleep and eat and things like that, and while making the film. Not to say that they were treated well in the 1940s or the 1990s. I'm not really sure.
If I can say one other thing to that point, though, actually, Tanner, we were talking the other day about the old like Fleischer Superman cartoons, which are of a contemporaneous time, obviously for TV, not the same budget or whatever. But I think it is still important to like look at the extent to which Disney was running circles around people with the quality of the animation here.
Yeah,
I mean, I love watching their short. These are all on Disney Plus. I recommend people check out like the band concert and things like that. But,
the old Mickey shorts.
Yeah, the old Mickey shorts, which are great and they're beautifully animated. But to see that at an hour, I talked about the number where Dumbo crashes the pillar of elephants. But as you're watching that, and the elephant's skin is like being squashed by each other, and they're like frowning at each other, and this whole thing is wobbling. Disney creates this insane level of detail and internal logic in these larger-than-life animations that I think today is still super impressive. So I can only imagine what it was like watching this in the 40s.
I mean, I can only imagine like the literal process of animating a film like this, like the actual production workflow, and that by itself is super impressive to me. That like in 1941 you could get all these individual frames together, get them all drawn consistently, photograph them, make them animate, play them out, and the style. I think this early Disney style like really hit me in this film maybe a little bit more than the ones with more humanoid characters, where we have these kind of blobs and balloons and that can squish and be pulled, and it's very cartoony, but it's so effective for that because the exaggerated action of what they're all getting to do. And in a lot of these scenes, we're like, Dumbo doesn't talk and there's no lines. Like, this is a children's movie. They are telling us the plot through action and characters looking at each other with big faces, and like it's a different mode of storytelling, and one that is, I think, a benefit to young minds, and one that can be perceived by basically anybody, whether they're dribbling at the mouth or foaming at the mouth.
What?
Something about foaming at the mouth? I'm not really sure.
Either babies or people with rabies? Babies or rabies?
Babies or old people is, I guess, what I meant.
Frankly, in my opinion, that's the only things. That's the only kind of people that Disney appeals to.
The only audience
Babies
I
and
want
rabies.
for my films.
It's more like if they're drilling at the mouth or if they're drooling at the mouth.
Yeah, that's really... if they're in diapers or if they're in diapers. One thing I noted, I don't know how deep this observation goes, and I don't know if I want to say like the Disney storytellers were lazy to a certain extent, but like coming off of Pinocchio and going into this, you're like, Timothy Q. Mouse is just fucking Jiminy Cricket again. That's all he is.
Sure.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, I guess
his
more
name is
narratively...
Timothy. It's okay. It's worse than that because it's Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
And Timothy Mouse.
Timothy Q. Mouse.
Thank you.
Excuse you. But like, I guess more narratively necessary in Dumbo because Dumbo cannot speak, even though the other elephants talk and stuff like that. So Timothy Q. Mouse has to be like the voice of reason, like Jiminy Cricket was, and then also like Dumbo's voice essentially for the film. So, he's obviously like the moral compass, or I guess the driving force of like, come on, Dumbo, we're gonna
No, that sounds like a different. That
What?
sounds like a different guy.
That's
What
it.
does he sound like?
He just kind of sounds like a New Yorker.
Yeah, he's like Midnight Cowboy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Oh, gee. Oh, I'm doing Morty from Rick and Morty.
He's kind of got the forget about it.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, he does.
Hey, I'm walking here.
I
Hey,
guess-
I'm in the circus
Hey,
tent.
Dumbo, you gotta keep your chin up.
I guess I can't do a Timothy Q. Mouse. Oh, shucks. That one's
Well,
not
I
in my
think
voice
that-
repertoire.
I think that is again another element of this film that, or another point to my on the stack of this film doesn't feel particularly memorable to me. Like even we can probably do some pretty good voice impressions of many animated characters.
Mhm.
We can recite their funny lines or their catchphrase, or they have a certain way of speaking that really matches with their character. It's not a bad thing that Timmy Q. Mouse has a New Yorker voice. That doesn't bother me. But he doesn't have any iconic lines. He doesn't have an iconic voice. I didn't even know he was in this movie. The only element of Dumbo that I was familiar with, again, I probably saw this when I was a child, and I knew the idea of, okay, he's treated badly and then he learns how to fly. That's really what I knew. But going into it and realizing that the element that I know from it, which is Dumbo flying, is the last 3 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
And frankly, the majority of the film is Timmy Q. Mouse trying to help Dumbo through his problems. And I will give the film credit where credit is due. That dynamic and that narrative of trying to build up Dumbo's self-confidence is the strongest narrative element of the film by I think a significant margin.
For sure.
The idea that there's this guy helping him
Mayhaps
along and
the only narrative
realizes
element?
that he sorry?
Mayhaps the only narrative element of this film?
Yes.
The singular plot line?
The story of the movie.
I will also say, Tucker, I agree with you, and I also think it good dovetails nicely with or actually for this point, mouse tails with what Timo was saying, because
Oh god.
there's good
5 comedy points.
there's really great visual storytelling in that we see Dumbo hold on to his mother's tail with his trunk, and then he does the same to Timmy's tail.
That's right.
Timothy
and
Q.
I-
Mouse's
I
tail.
like that.
And I think
Cute.
that those are the sort of things that make this film work for me, because it's cute. It also conveys something about this relationship that is simple but is effective for these simple, because these building blocks are simple but they're also rigid. I think this is sort of film that you put the pieces together and that you're not knocking that
Yeah, of
tower
course.
over.
Yeah.
It's got a low ambition in terms of what the plot complexity is. So to that effect, it nails it, I think, completely. But I think not only understanding this sort of faux parental relationship that the mouse takes on, but then also just the visual humor of this tiny mouse having this much bigger elephant follow along by its tail. That's just the sort of stuff that I think makes these films intrinsically interesting for me to watch.
Yeah. Should we talk about the parade of the pink elephants? Pink elephants
Yes.
on parade?
Let's talk
So,
about it.
Speaking
Because
of
what were they
the-
smoking when they made that? I mean,
Well, yeah. Speaking of the chronology that Abram had pointed out, both from Fantasia, whether there's clear chronology here, and from Pinocchio, like I had brought up, they seem to just inject a Fantasia was basically all this, but even in Pinocchio, there's a very similar narrative scene where Pinocchio gets drunk and has a fucking hellish nightmare dream. On Fantasy Island, what's it called? The Misbehaving Island, something like that.
the Island of Misfit Toys? No,
No.
that's Herbie and the dentist and whatever.
Bad Boy Island or something. I don't know.
No, that's what we're seeing tomorrow.
That's what we're seeing tomorrow. Anyway, so they seem to inject these scenes into the narrative somehow. I doubt this is in the original children's book that Dumbo gets drunk on champagne and dreams of this. But they're really just moments for the animators to kind of flex their muscles to, other animation houses for what existed at the time, and also to the audience. So, here's what can be done with the medium of animation. It is foundational, of course, to what Tucker had been mentioning earlier as kind of these foundational texts for animation as cinema, and to where they built both in Disney's repertoire and other animated creatives as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really impressive sequence. The number of times that an image morphs into another image, and usually never in a expected way. And I was trying to be in the mood of this sequence, and so when I was watching it, I'd be like, "Whoa, man, that's trippy," and then something trippy would happen, and be like, "Wow!"
Just like people in the 1940s would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I honestly
what would
wonder
they
how
say?
they referred
Yeah.
to this sequence. Yeah,
Man.
because I have no idea what pre-70s drug culture was like.
Yeah, see, it's out
Oh,
of
you
this
can just
world.
pick it up on the counter.
see? Yeah.
That's
You
true.
just give methamphetamines across the counter.
Timo,
It was just normal to guys like that.
It was just normal. It was all right.
Timo, I got $1 billion idea.
Yep.
1920s like swinger culture, but also it's a stoner movie. It's a 1920s stoner movie.
Oh,
It's like
that's
Charlie
interesting.
Chaplin, but he's on weed.
But he's on weed.
He's on weed.
That's right. He's doing the weed.
Mm.
Stay off the weed.
Okay, Stephen A.
Yeah.
The reason I really like this sequence is because I love the way that the logic sort of devolves and
Yeah.
then takes on its own internal vocabulary, which is something I've talked about a couple times in this review. But we begin by seeing elephants in the clouds.
Mhm.
And then the scene is overcome by this surrealism to the point where elephants are turning into pyramids and they're turning into other elephants.
Turn into snakes and cars, and then the cars
Yeah.
are zigzagging across the screen, and,
And
then
then
that'll turn into like a musical scale.
The cars are made out of elephants, actually. If you look at them, they like got
Oh,
little
yeah.
trunks and
Yeah.
like, yeah.
It's really a
Ours have trunks.
That's a good
And
point.
some of them
Ding,
have
ding, ding.
frunks, too.
5 comedy
Sinners
points.
I've
5
come-
factual points.
And so I really like that the way that the film sort of lets you into that surrealism over time, over the course of the sequence, and it builds upon itself. This is a very weird comparison,
Mhm.
but I saw The Fall Guy again over the weekend.
Oh.
And there's a part where Ryan Gosling is on drugs and he starts seeing unicorns.
That's right.
And in that film, the unicorns simply appear. And it's jarring, but the joke is that it's jarring.
Mhm.
And I think that sort of surrealism in film is funny and intriguing. But I think, and obviously it's animated, so it'd be much harder to convince me of the unicorns in the Fall Guy. But I think taking full advantage of animation to say, how can we?
Yeah, they got a real unicorn for that one.
Mm-mm.
How can we walk the viewer from this Dumbo constructed reality into this surreal Dumbo reality?
Yeah.
I think is unique to animation, and I think it's extremely effective.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because they have this like sort of drunky trip initially where it's like, okay, things are meshing with the reality of the film, which is already a ridiculous reality where a train is saying, I think I can, trying to get over the thing. And and there's a bunch of weird shit that happens in the actual Dumbo world. But I both like this sequence for this reason and also kind of dislike this sequence for this reason is it does completely break the reality to where it's just things happening on like a black screen for a lot of it. And that's not inherently a bad thing. It's very experimental. We will see, not here, but you could go watch like experimental animations
Exactly.
from a couple later years, probably some of which more inspired by this sequence in Dumbo. Norman McLaren is my favorite experimental animator. His films are all on YouTube if you want to go watch them. But
I'm more of a Mothlight guy myself.
well, is this bracket?
Yeah.
But my point is that this sequence, the only intention, and this is a totally fine thing, but not necessarily for me, but the only intention is just to have cool shit happen. Like it's flexing the power of the animators. This is really cool. Only the medium of animation can do this. But I think it also hinders the film in a small way in that the coolest sequence of this film visually is also the one that has zero narrative impact at all. The only thing that it contributes is that it gets them into a tree.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then they have to
Well,
find out that he can
we should probably talk about
fly,
that.
but also
as
they
we-
don't find out that he can fly because he's in the tree because he just falls into the mud.
Yeah.
So I actually he gets into the tree and then they get to meet the crows.
Yes.
Which we can then talk about. But my point being, narratively, this is barely justified. They get drunk because the clowns are partying, and then they black out, and then they end up in the tree. And the interstitial is just ridiculous stuff happening on a black screen. And again, that's okay in terms of it's visually cool, very impressive, and something only animation can do. But it doesn't mean anything in the narrative of the film. It's just that's cool.
Mhm.
I guess you're right, but there's a very similar sequence in the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, where it's the Heffalumps and Woozles number, where Winnie the Pooh is standing his ground. It's actually a very Floridian story of the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. He's standing his ground with his pop gun in his home, and he falls asleep. And he literally drifts out of his body and into an even more outrageous number where the Heffalumps and Woozles, which are ostensibly weasels and elephants, but are like polka dotted and striped and turn into pots and can turn into accordions, are going nuts. And they're singing this song about how Pooh should be afraid of them.
Yeah.
I think that for me, and this is partially because this sort of animated logic I just like. It's just what I still enjoy
So
today.
a guy like you, it's normal.
To a guy like it's not that it's normal. It's just that, like, that's what I want to see this movie for.
To a guy like me, an animated movie looks live action.
I cannot discern fiction from reality.
Let's talk about the.
Well, I got one more thing to say about the pink elephant sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, through all of our comments on it, we've all individually brought up a thing that's like, oh, I guess this thing is clearly based on or rooted in the pink elephants on parade. So I think that really underlines how important this sequence is for the history of animation. I mean,
history of film too. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And film in general, of course. But yeah, like I think that this is like the cornerstone more so than stuff like Fantasia or Pinocchio that I had mentioned, because Pinocchio, it's if I'm remembering the film right, it's just like that he's like a little drunk and he's going down like a riverboat ride and seeing some weird things happen along the shore.
Riverboat ride, you say? Maybe I could.
He certainly does
that.
not get drunk in the remake.
No, that's right. They take that part out. And in Fantasia, it's all of these disconnected stories. But for this, this is as we've been saying, this is a storybook kind of film for children and families to go see. And then in the middle, they deliver this very experimental scene. So I think that's why it entered the culture a lot more. It was in something a lot more broadly appealing, and yet is probably the most experimental that Disney had gotten up to this point, or ever. They have some following ones like Alice in Wonderland that has sequences like this, and you can make a list. But I think Dumbo is like the really important film for this kind of sequence, and is even the pink elephants on parade is sort of like film world vocabulary at this point.
Mm-hmm.
One fun note I'll say: Dumbo is actually literally mentioned in The Fall Guy. I just wanted to stick that in there.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about the racism.
Okay. So did you guys watch this on Disney Plus? I don't know if you guys have a Disney Plus account.
I did not.
No.
I lifted it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You lifted it from your shelf into your
That's
VHS.
right.
Yeah, I watched it on VHS.
player.
Yeah.
I have a Laserdisc.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Anyway, as most people for the rest of history will be watching this on Disney Plus. And so you'll see the thing at the beginning. This is the first time I'd ever seen it, by the way. I've never watched like a classic Disney film on Disney Plus before.
Gone with the Wind, that was on Disney Plus.
Sorry?
Gone with the Wind? That was on Disney.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Oh, wait, no. Never mind.
Let him continue.
They flash up this film was made in a different historical context. These depictions were wrong then and are wrong now. You also, I noticed, can't pause to read it because I tried. It's on screen for 12 seconds. It's like 4 paragraphs of text. And you cannot pause to read it. And then it just flies right into the movie. It's very strange to me. But yes, of course, there are...
Stop, restart the movie, start it again.
Exactly. There are the racist crows who are, very clearly supposed to be
depictions of crows that imply a very nasty stereotype.
The crows in the film are not racist characters.
No.
Well, we don't know.
I guess they certainly might be.
Yeah, they certainly show a stigma towards Dumbo and his large ears. So who's to say what other prejudices they?
There's
may
a lot of
hold.
earist people in this movie, or animals, I should say. But
I mean, I think the crows are really bad, but this film does double duty on the anti-black stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned the tent sequence earlier in the film.
Yes.
But I think that one is even more egregious because those characters are literally faceless.
Yeah, very.
The other human characters in the film who are all white are fully drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All the clowns and all the people in the audience and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
So yeah, there's as Abram said, kind of two different scenes. What the crows are obviously much more notable because they have like speaking lines and are dressed in very racist stereotypical ways and act in very racist stereotypical ways, and it's bad, and does weigh
And
negatively
the primary
on the film.
character is named Jim Crow, and I was watching
Yeah.
this with a friend, and he was like, "Did I say Jim?"
Yeah.
And we like looked at each other, and we're like, "Yeah."
Hmm.
And they have retconned this kind of halfway. The character now, whenever he is depicted in Dumbo-related media,
Mhm.
is known as Dandy Crow,
I see.
which is
Why not
you
like
can still read into it,
James?
but James Crow. But the character was Jim Crow, and
Yeah.
the interesting thing about that and these characters is that you really can only read it through the lens of people had much stronger appeal towards this kind of stereotype humor in the 1940s when this film was produced, and for comedic effect, mocking black speaking language and poverty and things like that through these characters it's just a joke. Like there's not really any way you can read thematic reading into it or anything. It's like, they're just played for laughs.
It's the material of the joke. He's like, it's the classic thing of like you ask the racist or sexist or whatever person the joke that they like explain why the joke is funny, and it's just like, oh, because X reason or X stereotype or whatever. And so that's a great point. Is that like that's like the only reason these characters are here? They are a jab at Southern African Americans at the time. So
Yeah.
bad,
and because Walt
bad
Disney
stuff.
or whoever wrote this movie thought it was funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I actually do think that for me, I agree with you, Abram, that obviously the crows are the more memorable part. The lines of the song over the putting up the tent part, as I mentioned earlier, I think are like the part of this movie that I found the most thematically confusing, because otherwise it's very straightforward. Don't make fun of people who are different from you, unless they're a different race, and then that's okay, and you can make jokes at their expense. But that's the theme of the movie is people that look different from you have their skills, and that they deserve to be treated with respect because they have their own special strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, it's also worth noting, Abram and I shot glances at each other a couple of times during this movie. One of them was when the elephants are sort of like talking about, the lady elephants are sort of gossiping, and then one of them says like, "Oh, we are a proud race." I was like, knowing what's coming later in the film, I'm not, this can read it in a certain way.
Yeah, but that's also the sort of thing for me with the lyrics of this circus construction sequence.
Yeah.
Is I feel like it has to have some sort of thematic meaning of it, and we're reading very much into it almost 100 years later, a very different social context, but exploitation of labor and the fact that these people were not educated and that they're working to their bone, but then also the other lyrics are, we love doing it, and all we want to see is the smiling faces of children. And so it's like, why include the parts that are very clearly like class-based in the exploitation of the workers and things, but it's also played for a joke? It's just very confusing to me.
Yeah.
Well, I think that first I'll give you what I think the film is actually saying, then I'll give you the leftist theory that is definitely in the racist
version.
Definitely in the racist.
The stuff that would have gotten you
Dumbo.
blacklisted when Dumbo came out.
Yeah.
Well, I think that ultimately it's as simple as it is these people are, as the song literally says, slaving away, but they love it because it's for the craft. And the circus is hard, but we do it because we love seeing the kids smile. I think it is just a stupid and simple. I think it's stupid and simple, frankly.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's impossible that if you're participating in revisionist critique, that you could make an argument that the elephants, much like a film like Parasite, are because there's this interesting part in the film where the clowns exploit Dumbo,
Yes.
and to put Dumbo in harm's way for their own benefit,
Right.
Without
They put
realizing
Dumbo in whiteface.
They do.
Without realizing that they and Dumbo are of the same class position, and
Yeah,
they should be
yeah.
working together to overthrow the ringmaster.
Yes, that's right.
So there's a sort of intrinsic like complacency and like class infighting when there should be class solidarity to overthrow the ringleader. And I think that's what Dumbo is trying to tell us.
Interpreted any of this for the first 40 years of Dumbo's release, at least.
I just wanted to throw it out there.
Hey, that's interesting. It's one of the more interesting observations that has been made about Dumbo ever, probably.
Probably so.
But then I say that, and then you say to me, "Hey, the crow's name is Jim Crow," and then I lose the argument.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Canonically, yeah. It's just like I didn't catch that they had like changed his name in Disney canon, but yeah, even on
I looked it up
Letterboxd,
on the wiki. Yeah,
he's credited as Dandy Crow. I wonder if they change the other ones. I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
yeah. The other ones don't have as they don't have as racist names. So
Yeah.
This was not considered to be racist enough to, or Dumbo was considered beloved enough that Disney's not tried to totally scrub it away.
Yeah.
Like the Crow, like the Song of the South.
yeah, which is just not available. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a grand total of 6 hash marks on my notes here.
Well, we're gonna have to
Usually
finish this thing up too, because we're hitting our time limits, the movie runtime. You know.
Oh shit! We're coming up. Okay. I just wanted to note that
there's no time limit on questions.
the train has a terrible nightmare voice. That's what. Yeah.
Yeah, the train does have a
That
terrible
was very
nightmare voice.
This
It's like-
sounds like a train whistle.
Yeah, but he also sounds like a smoker who's got a hole drilled in their throat. Like,
Yeah.
The clowns have some funny banter. There's also a bit that I like. It's when they're getting like out of their clown regalia in like silhouette. That as they're taking off the clown makeup and the clothes and
There's
everything,
visual gags.
there's some visual gags there. And then I noticed that like they like lose the clown voices as well. I think one of them, the main one, even gains like an academic sort of British accent as he takes his clown stuff off. So it was like, he's a classically trained guy. He's out here doing the touring circus, but you know he's a British actor.
He's just Shakespearean.
Yeah, he's
on the stage. He's
That's
a man
right.
on the stage.
That's it though. I mean, we talked about the end of the movie. Like Dumbo flies around, and then they're like, "Holy shit, this guy's got to be in movies."
Yeah, but again, that, in my opinion, that's the interesting part of the movie. It's literally the most iconic element of the film, and I think it's just narratively frustrating as a modern viewer to be blueballed on the only part of Dumbo that is culturally relevant. Is that this stupid elephant with the giant ears can fly. And not that he's not dumb, he's a quite smart little lad. But I it does feel like there's another act missing from this film in terms of where the
Another
narrative is
30
going.
minutes?
And also the pacing. Well, yeah, and it would have been a 90-minute film, and that would be very short still. But the pacing of this film is such that within sequences, it's moving very quickly, but also the sequences, there aren't too many sequences, period, because it's just a short movie.
Yep.
And so we spend so much time doing multiple sequences of Dumbo gaining his confidence and Timmy Mouse and the whole thing with the circus dynamic and stuff. And so it just feels odd that once the narrative feels like it's gotten its own idea, like really strongly forward, of this elephant can fly. That's pretty interesting. That they decided to just like do a 2.5 minute montage and then cut it quits.
I mean, I checked the sequence like right after like he learns he can fly and he's doing the thing, and I checked. I clicked up on the button just to see how much was left, and I was like, oh, there is 90 seconds left of this movie.
Yeah,
it was pretty crazy, and you know, like just very odd in terms of like how this is doled out, because I assume you want more of the elephant flying around.
I couldn't suspend my disbelief for that part, actually. So
I see. I gotcha.
I just
I
didn't
closed my
buy
eyes
it.
for the last 90
I
seconds.
just
of the
didn't
film.
buy it. You know, how can he fly?
Dumbo buys his mom like a express caboose car, upscale luxury caboose car. That's pretty. It's a fun little
If
gag
I were
at the end.
Dumbo and the bourgeoisie class of the circus had enslaved my mother, I would not still be keeping my mother around these people.
You know, yeah, I buy her, you know, or I don't know.
Buy her a nice.
And again, to to my rating of the film,
Uh-huh.
Dumbo kicks the ladder down behind him
He
because
does.
the other fucking
Or,
animals are
or
still
is it
in
like an
cages.
Elvis situation where Timothy Q. Mouse is controlling all the
Ooh.
assets?
Ah,
We
I think that's
need-
very well. No. We know that that's true because he's his manager.
He's his manager.
That's how he learned his name because
Yeah.
it's the
Timothy Q.
signature,
Mouse is written
upside
on there.
down signature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I choose
Yeah.
to believe that Timothy Q. Mouse is the Colonel Colonel Tom Parker to
Yeah.
Dumbo's Elvis.
Soon,
Well,
soon,
Seven
I think
Circus
that's-
job is
I
better
think
than no
it's
job.
absolutely
A snow job is better than no job.
I'm gonna put a score in.
All right.
I am
Yeah.
also going to put a score in.
I think I'll abstain.
Tucker's not going to vote today.
That's not a joke. I mean, it is a joke.
I've done the palm details on this already, so I'll save you the chore of it, I suppose.
Okay. Well, I've got a number. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Oui.
2, 1. We have a number. It is a 5.6. So there you go.
Ooh.
No ties today. It is going to go at spot. Let me see. I'll just move it up there right now. Make my life a little easier. Spot number 15 on our list.
Right.
So not very high. 5.6.
Out of 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of 18.
17, sorry.
Puts it in between Red Meadows and the Go-Between. Well,
Yeah.
and the Point Breakdown. We shan't forget that.
Oh, yes.
Starting at the bottom, Tucker gave it a 4.7, Tanner gave it a 5, I gave it a 5.1, and then Abram gave it a 7.5.
And also, just for a little bit of intrigue, it is above Ziegfeld Follies, which it was at the same Cannes Film Festival with, but it is below Antoine and Antoinette.
That's right. And
Yeah.
we have how many more do we have from this 47 festival? Let me
There's two
count.
more.
Yeah, we have social film and adventure and crime film left from this.
Well, what are the
this
films that won?
Best social film was Edward. Is it Dimitrick?
Well, Dimitri.
Yes.
His film Crossfire, and then best adventure and crime film went to Rene Clement's The Damned.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, there's only one way to find out what we're
Yes.
getting next week.
It's the wheel.
Ooh, it's the wheel.
Wheel, what's your deal? Give us a movie that makes us squeal. Is it on digital or is it on real? Wheel, what's your deal?
Ooh, the deal of wheel is
Ooh,
number
this is a recent
77. Number
You want to
77?
read this one off for us?
Oh,
again?
I'd love to.
Where is it here? Okay. Alrighty.
Oh dear, no, actually, I don't want to read it because I'm going to not say that name right.
Well, it's okay.
The
the
director's
director's name. Oh wait,
Yeah, I can read the title.
Give it to
sure,
me.
okay.
Give it to
All
me.
right,
I'm dying
this
with
is a film.
anticipation
This
over
is
here.
a film starring.
film?
This is a film from 2013.
Okay.
It is starring Adele Exarchopoulos and Leah Seydoux. It is directed by, I will attempt this name, but also I don't really give a fuck because he's a terrible person.
Oh.
Abdelatif Kashish, I believe is how you would pronounce that. It is the film Blue is the Warmest
Oh, yeah.
Color.
Okay.
This is a 3-hour film. It won at the, as I said already, the 2013 Cannes Film Festival. Yeah.
Damn.
Not a whole lot else to say. I'm vaguely aware of this film. It is a lesbian romance of sorts, and has of course been colored in more modern contexts by the fact that the director, by Leah Seydoux, I believe, she was the one who came out and said this. He was a really shitty guy and like forced them to do sex scenes that they didn't really want to do in this film.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the shooting of it was very uncomfortable for them or something. I'll look into make sure we set the story straight here when
Yeah.
we review this film.
Do our homework a little bit.
It'd be important context for this film that has a reputation of being like a lesbian romance film with a lot of lesbian sex scenes in it.
This is a film I've been curious to see for a long time. I did not know any of that context.
Mhm.
So, well,
I'm just
Yes.
curious if anything with Leah Seydoux in it, personally.
Yeah.
Including Death Stranding 2 on the
I'm
beach.
sure she is very good. I'm sure Adele Exarchopoulos is very good. We'll be hearing her actually in an upcoming animated film, Inside Out 2.
I just had Transformers 1.
No, at least I do could be in Transformers 1, maybe. They could get her in that. Anyway, yes. Blue is the Warmest Color is the film that we will be reviewing next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode in the can. Dumbo. 54 minutes. I mean,
Timo, you gotta start saying that at the end of every episode.
I think
In
I
the can. Very good.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. We are in the can, and soon enough, maybe we'll be getting our own Palme d'Or. But maybe, I don't know. I'm speaking.
This podcast.
Are we up for one?
Well,
Yeah.
maybe not this year, but maybe next year. Maybe next year.
We'll submit all 100 hours to the festival as a movie,
Well, it'll
and
be
then
like say it's actually like an experimental film that's a commentary
and
on the film industry.
It's an
on film
immersive
criticism,
It's
yeah.
an immersive
film history
installation.
criticism.
Wow.
Yeah,
What-
I mean,
well,
look, if Jean-Luc Godard could make whatever that fucking movie he made that was just like a patchwork of other people's movies, why can't we just send them 200 hours of Quest reviews?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
and
Do
be
you think that the totaling of all of our Quest episodes are longer than the Cannes Film Festival?
That's a
What do you
good-
mean?
An
How long would it take the
hours?
show?
Yeah,
in hours.
like if you were to
Oh,
start watching
in terms of
the
days.
first
Oh,
episode of
yeah.
Quest, would you
Yeah.
finish by the
Yeah.
time? I think, yeah.
Because there's 250 hours of Quest.
And there's
That'd be 10 days.
146 hours in a week.
The Cannes Film Festival. I mean, we will eventually beat them soon, but yeah,
Soon.
10 days is about how long the festival goes.
Yeah.
So
So more math for us to do. Okay, enough tangenting.
Raina, you love doing math? You love Cannes Film Festival? You were at Cannes Film Festival?
Yeah.
Do the math.
Most
I'm sure
qualified.
going to work off onto someone else.
Uh-huh.
Next week we are gonna be watching Blue is the Warmest Color. So I hope you
not
join.
next week. Not. Oh wait, no. Yes, yes,
indeed,
yes,
next
next
week.
week.
There'll be no
That's right.
interruption in the program.
No interruption in the program. I thought there was. I got confused. My mistake.
None of
Next
that.
week.
None of that here. We stay on schedule. Blue is the warmest color coming up next. Thank you guys for talking about Dumbo, watching it, getting our whimsy on, even if our hearts may or may not be open to it. As I always say, stay calm, and carry on.
Stay calm. Hold on. Everyone just calm down.
Stay cool, keep warm. Peace.